The galaxy was vast. Endless stars burned like diamonds across black velvet. Planets spun silently, some alive with civilizations older than anyone could remember. Ancient races, creatures of immense size and wisdom, had ruled the galactic councils for millennia. They had ships bigger than moons, weapons capable of destroying worlds, and knowledge that could bend the very laws of physics. And in this galaxy of giants, Earth was nothing. A small blue planet, orbiting an ordinary yellow star in a quiet arm of the galaxy, barely registered on any maps. Its humans, simple creatures of flesh and curiosity, had yet to leave their solar system in any meaningful way. They were watched sometimes with amusement, sometimes with complete disregard. When Earth tried to join galactic summits, they were laughed at. The council doors, massive and shining with alien metal, opened just enough to let them speak, then shut with polite dismissal. At the Grand Hall of the Intergalactic Council, humans sat at the smallest table. Their delegation consisted of 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman, dressed in simple uniforms that seemed almost comical next to the flowing, luminous robes of the alien representatives. The first counselor, a massive crystalline being named Trelka, towered over the human trio, its voice resonating like a cathedral bell. "Earth has once again sent its representatives," Trelka said. His eyes, if they could be called that, flickered with tiny lights across his crystalline body. "We listen, though we wonder why." The humans looked at each other. Commander Elena Rojas, the leader, took a deep breath and straightened her back. "We come to offer cooperation," she said. "We believe Earth can contribute to the Council in ways you may not expect." A low hum of laughter rolled through the room. Not cruel, exactly, but it carried centuries of disbelief. A floating creature with translucent wings called Vaylin drifted closer. His voice was soft but cutting. "You believe your tiny planet matters in our affairs?" Elena swallowed. She had practiced this moment for months. "We do," she said firmly. "And we are asking for a chance to prove it." The council murmured. No one took her seriously. They had dealt with planets like Earth before, primitive, ambitious, and utterly unprepared. And so, the meeting ended without resolution. The humans returned to their ship, heads held high but hearts heavy. On the way back, Elena stared out the observation window at the sea of stars. "Why do we even try?" whispered Lieutenant Raj Malhotra, the youngest of the team. "They'll never listen." Elena did not answer immediately. She watched a small moon drift past, its surface glowing faintly. "Because someday someone will," she finally said. "And when that day comes, we need to be ready." Meanwhile, far beyond the edge of known space, a signal pulsed through the dark. It was subtle at first, barely detectable even with the most sensitive instruments. No one had noticed it until the human deep space probe, Vanguard, passed close to the outer rim. The signal was unusual, rhythmic, and powerful. It carried a pattern that suggested intelligence. Dr. Naomi Chen, the chief scientist aboard the Vanguard, was the first to notice. She had spent years tracking cosmic anomalies, and something about the signal made her sit straight in her chair. It was not like a star flare or a black hole emission. It had order, purpose, intention. "This is different," she murmured. "It's coming from the void." The void, that dark region beyond the last known stars, where even light seemed to disappear. Most civilizations avoided it. Legends whispered of ancient fleets lost forever, entire races swallowed by its darkness. And yet, here was a signal pulsing like a heartbeat, deep inside the void. Commander Rojas received the report hours later. She leaned over the console, watching the screen flicker with strange patterns. "Have we decoded anything?" she asked. "Not yet," Dr. Chun replied. "It's like nothing we've ever seen. I can't even tell if it's a warning or an invitation." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to find out. Immediately." They didn't tell the council. They didn't want interference or ridicule. This was something humans would face on their own. Back on Earth, the news barely made headlines. Earthlings were too busy with their own lives, politics, sports, weather. They did not know that above their heads, something far older and far more dangerous was stirring. Satellites picked up unusual energy patterns. Deep space arrays detected slight gravitational shifts, but most dismissed them as anomalies. Only a handful of people noticed. Dr. Chun and her team worked in secrecy, analyzing the signal day and night. Every attempt to trace it further revealed something incredible. The source was moving, slowly but deliberately toward the Milky Way. Not random, not natural, something alive and intelligent was coming. "Commander," Dr. Chun said one evening, exhaustion in her voice. "Whatever this is, it's heading right for us." Elena's jaw tightened. "Then we need to prepare. Quietly. They'll laugh at us if they know we've noticed." On a distant planet, within the Council's shining citadel, debate continued over Earth's place in the galaxy. "Why waste time with them?" one elder asked. "Their technology is primitive. Their ships are laughable. Their weapons barely scratch a moon, let alone a warship." Another counselor, a winged creature with eyes that glowed silver, replied cautiously, "We should watch them. Even the smallest flame can start a wildfire." No one listened. Humans were forgotten. Earth was ignored, dismissed, unworthy of attention. And yet, in that quiet neglect lay humans' greatest advantage. They were underestimated. They were small, seemingly weak, but relentless. While others debated politics and hierarchy, humans studied, adapted, and innovated. Back on the vanguard, the humans began to experiment. Small drones were sent into the void, probing the signal. Each drone sent back strange readings. Massive energy fluctuations, unusual craft moving faster than anything humans had built, and structures that seemed impossibly large. Yet the most disturbing detail was the lack of response. They were being observed. Silently, calculating, waiting. Raj Malhotra leaned back in his chair, eyes wide as the newest data streamed in. "It's like they know we're watching. Like, they're aware." Elena did not speak. She did not need to. The fear was already there, but so was the excitement. This was their moment. Humanity, laughed at and ignored, had finally found something that demanded their attention, and perhaps the attention of the galaxy. As Earth continued its slow, blissful ignorance, the signal strengthened. Patterns emerged in the rhythm, almost like a language. Dr. Chun speculated it could be a warning or a challenge. But for now, the humans had no choice but to watch, study, and prepare. Every analysis confirmed the same terrifying thought. Whatever was coming, it was vast. Vast and deliberate. The Human Council, small and overlooked, convened quietly in hidden chambers. Military strategists, scientists, and leaders discussed possibilities. Ships were prepared, but only the most advanced and capable could be used for deep space reconnaissance. Weapons were tested, though they were still primitive compared to galactic standards. And humans, underestimated for centuries, began to realize that perhaps being ignored was their greatest gift. If the galaxy saw them as weak, then the humans could act without interference. They could learn, adapt, and, most importantly, survive. Weeks passed. The signal pulsed stronger each day. The void itself seemed restless. Reports came in of strange distortions at the galaxy's edge, like space itself was bending, forming shadows that had no stars, no origin. The Council remained indifferent, preoccupied with their politics and pride. But humans were watching. They tracked every pulse, every fluctuation, every change. And slowly a plan began to form. They would not wait for the Council's permission. They would go where no one dared, and they would learn the truth of the void. Elena Rojas stood before the observation window of the Vanguard. The stars stretched endlessly before her, silent and infinite. Somewhere in that darkness, something waited, something ancient, something powerful, and humanity, small and underestimated, was ready to meet it. Because for centuries the galaxy had ignored Earth, laughed at its people, dismissed its potential. But soon, very soon, the silence of the summits would be broken. Not by words, not by politics, but by action. And the galaxy would finally see what humans were capable of. The galaxy was quiet, but not empty. Beyond the last known stars, past the boundaries of charted space, darkness spread like a living ocean. The void, a place whispered about in legends, seemed empty at first glance, yet it was full of secrets. Strange energies moved like currents in the darkness, carrying patterns that no one had ever understood. And from this darkness came a sound, a faint pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Humans aboard the Vanguard felt it before they understood it. Dr. Naomi Chun stared at the screens, her fingers frozen over the console. "It's getting stronger," she said quietly. Her voice trembled, betraying the excitement and fear she had worked so hard to suppress. The pulse repeated at regular intervals, impossible to ignore. "It's like it's calling us," she whispered, almost afraid that speaking it aloud would make it real. Commander Elena Rojas stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. She was calm outwardly, but inside, a storm of questions raged. What waited in the void? Was it friend or foe? Could humans survive contact with something older and larger than their understanding? The unknown always carried danger. But in that danger, Elena felt something she hadn't in a long time. Hope. Not hope that the galaxy would see humans as equals, but hope that they might finally prove themselves. Lieutenant Raj Malhotra, younger than either of them, leaned forward, scanning the data. His eyes were wide, almost afraid. "Commander, look at this. The signal, it's responding. Every time we probe it, it changes. It's like it's aware of us." His voice was a whisper, as if fear had made him believe that loud words could summon disaster. Elena's hands clenched into fists. She knew that feeling all too well, fear. The fear of the unknown, of failing her people, of not being ready. But she also knew humans had something the galaxy often overlooked: resilience. They were underestimated, ignored, but never defeated. "We keep going," she said simply. "We watch, we learn, and we survive. That's all we can do." Meanwhile, on Earth, life went on as usual. People stared at screens and worried about taxes, politics, and trivial arguments, while above their heads, the stars whispered of a coming storm. Satellites detected slight anomalies. Tiny bursts of energy pulsed through the atmosphere, but scientists dismissed them as cosmic noise. No one understood that these were warnings, not accidents, and that the galaxy's fate might hinge on the actions of a single small species. In the Vanguard, the crew worked tirelessly. Days and nights blurred together as they traced the source of the signal. Each new piece of data seemed to answer one question and create three more. Structures, enormous beyond imagination, floated silently in the void. Ships, or something resembling ships, moved with precision and purpose. They were not chaotic. They were deliberate, patient, calculating. And they were coming. Naomi Chun felt her chest tighten as she studied the readings. "I don't know what they want," she said, voice shaky. "But I think they've been waiting for something, or someone." Her words hung in the air like smoke, heavy with implication. Was it a warning, a threat, or perhaps a test? Raj shook his head, unable to hide the tremor in his hands. "A test? Us? Why us?" Elena looked out at the void, where the darkness seemed endless. "Because no one else is paying attention," she said quietly. "Because everyone else is too proud, too scared, or too busy to notice. Maybe it's our time. Maybe it's humanity's moment to prove we belong in this galaxy." The crew understood her meaning, and a quiet resolve settled over them. The fear remained, sharp and raw, but it was tempered with purpose. They were alone in this part of the galaxy. No help would come from the Council. No ally would arrive from the distant stars. If they failed, humanity might not only be ignored, they might be destroyed before anyone noticed. That night, in the quiet hum of the ship, Elena went to the observation deck. She stared at the stars, feeling the weight of billions of lives she was responsible for. Earth was small, fragile, and naive, yet it pulsed with life, creativity, and stubborn courage. Humans had survived famine, war, disease, and disaster for centuries. They had conquered impossible odds on their own planet. Could they now survive the vast unknown of the galaxy? Could they face whatever waited in the void? A soft alarm interrupted her thoughts. Naomi's voice came over the intercom. "Commander, you need to see this. The signal, it's changing. Faster. And it's almost like it's responding to us directly now." Elena hurried back to the control room. The screens glowed with a new pattern, waves of energy flowing in loops and spirals, almost like a language, almost like a heartbeat, almost like a mind trying to reach out. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This was no random anomaly. This was intelligence. Something vast, something ancient, and something that had taken notice of the humans' tiny ship. For the first time, a deep chill ran through Elena. The galaxy had always ignored Earth. But the void did not ignore anyone. It waited. It watched. And now it was aware of them. Raj stepped closer to the console, staring at the moving patterns. His voice was barely audible. "Commander, do you think they're friendly?" Elena did not answer. She did not need to. She could feel the answer in her bones. There was no way to know. They could be saviors or destroyers, gods or monsters. The only certainty was that the humans had been noticed. And that notice carried danger but also opportunity. The vanguard moved cautiously toward the source. Each passing light year brought them closer to the unknown. And with it, the weight of history pressing down. Humans had always been small, always overlooked, always underestimated. But now, perhaps, that smallness was their greatest strength. No one expected them to survive. And if they did, no one would ever ignore them again. Deep in the void, the pulse continued. Slowly, steadily, it grew. It was no longer distant. It had a rhythm almost like breathing. It was alive, and it knew humans were coming. Somewhere in that darkness, consciousness waited, ancient and patient, calculating and observing. And as the humans moved closer, the signal changed again, almost as if acknowledging them. Elena stood in front of the observation window, silent, heart pounding. For years, humans had lived in a galaxy that dismissed them. And now, for the first time, they were seen. Not by the Council, not by other civilizations, but by something greater, something incomprehensible. The fear was overwhelming, but beneath it, a spark of courage burned. Naomi whispered, almost to herself, "Whatever waits for us, we'll face it. We have to." Elena nodded. Her eyes never left the stars. "We don't have a choice. And maybe that's why we were chosen. Not because we're strong. Not because we're clever. But because we are human. We survive. We adapt. We fight. And somehow that's enough." The crew watched the signal pulse, the stars stretching into the infinite dark. Each one felt the weight of what lay ahead, the risk, the danger, the uncertainty. Yet none of them faltered. For the first time in centuries, humanity had drawn the attention of the galaxy in a way that mattered. And with that attention came responsibility, fear, and hope all at once. The void whispered, and the humans listened. Earth's people slept, unaware of the silent storm approaching from the void. Cities hummed with life, unaware that far above, in the infinite black, something older than most stars had noticed them. On the vanguard, the tension was unbearable. Every crew member felt it, not just fear, but the weight of responsibility. They were humanity's first line of defense, its eyes and ears in the darkness. And now, for the first time, their every move mattered. Commander Elena Rojas paced the control room. Her uniform was wrinkled, her hair loose from days without proper rest. Every decision carried weight. A wrong calculation, a missed observation, and the consequences could ripple across the entire planet. Yet beneath her calm exterior, her heart raced. Humans were preparing for something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that might not even be survivable. Dr. Naomi Chen tapped at the console, eyes scanning the data as though the numbers themselves held secrets of life and death. "The signal. It's changing again," she said quietly. "It's responding to our probes faster now. And it's more complex. There's a pattern emerging. Almost like a language." Raj Malhotra leaned against the console, rubbing his face. "A language? Are you telling me we're being spoken to? By whatever that is?" His voice was incredulous, tinged with fear. Commander, what if it's hostile? What if we've just announced ourselves to a predator? Elena turned, her eyes hard. Then we survive. That's all humans have ever done. Survive. If this is a predator, we'll adapt. If it's a test, we'll endure. Either way, we can't ignore it. And we won't. The crew fell silent, absorbing the truth of her words. Fear was natural. But determination, that was a choice. Humanity had faced extinction before countless times. From natural disasters to wars that tore continents apart, they had always endured. And now, in the silence of space, that endurance would be tested on a scale none had imagined. In secret, on Earth, preparations began. Military analysts, scientists, and engineers were quietly mobilized. Ships were readied for deep space reconnaissance. Weapons were tested, not for offense against the galaxy. No one believed humanity could compete yet, but for survival, for defense, for the chance that humans might live to see another day. The entire operation was covert. The Council of the Galaxy still dismissed Earth as insignificant. Humans had no allies, no reinforcements, no council to defend them if the worst came. And yet, in that very isolation lay humanity's greatest strength. They could act without interference. They could innovate freely, unbound by alien politics or centuries-old rivalries. In that freedom, the first seeds of hope were planted. The vanguard moved closer to the source of the signal. Small drones were launched, weaving through the empty darkness. The void seemed to watch them, silent, patient, and impossibly vast. Each drone returned with images of enormous structures, massive beyond comprehension, floating like islands in the black ocean. They pulsed with energy, not chaotic, but deliberate. Every movement, every hum suggested intelligence. And every observation brought a new wave of fear. Naomi Chun studied the readings, her eyes wide. These structures, they're not just ships, she whispered. They're something else. Something alive, maybe, or maybe just built to think like a living thing. Either way, it's not natural. Raj swallowed hard. So, whatever this is, it's smart. Smarter than us. Probably smarter than anyone. And it's coming here. Elena stepped to the observation window, her gaze fixed on the darkness ahead. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried the weight of her resolve. Yes, and we'll meet it anyway, because if we wait for permission, we'll be dead before anyone notices we exist. Humanity doesn't wait for permission. We adapt, we survive, and somehow we fight. At that moment, a soft tremor ran through the ship. Not an attack, not yet, but a reminder that the void was alive, aware, and waiting. Every crew member froze, feeling the subtle shift in gravity and energy. Something massive had moved, unseen but undeniable. Something had noticed their presence. Days passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Sleep became rare. The crew ate in silence. Fear was constant, gnawing at their nerves, but it was paired with an unspoken bond. They were the first humans to stand against the unknown, and they would face it together. The smallest mistake could mean the end. Not just of them, but of the planet they had sworn to protect. Elena convened a meeting in the ship's small strategy room. Holographic projections of the void floated above the table. "We have 3 priorities," she said, voice firm. "First, we observe. We learn everything we can about whatever is out there. Second, we prepare. We must be ready for both defense and survival. And third," her voice softened slightly, but the gravity remained, "we survive. No council, no allies, no one to save us. It's on us. All of us." Raj looked down at the table, voice small. "And what if we fail?" Elena's gaze held him. "Then we fail together, but we don't fail quietly. Humanity will be remembered for trying. And maybe, just maybe, we'll succeed. That's all we can hope for. That's all we can do." Outside the ship, the void pulsed again. The signal grew stronger, faster, more precise. Its intelligence became clear, not in words, not yet, but in intent. It was testing them, studying them, measuring their resolve. Every observation, every probe, every cautious approach was catalogued, recorded, analyzed. and humanity, small and underestimated, was beginning to understand the weight of attention from something beyond imagining. In one quiet moment, Elena stepped onto the observation deck alone. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, tired, worn, but unbroken. The stars stretched into infinity, and beyond them, the darkness waited. She thought of Earth, of the billions of people oblivious to the threat bearing down upon them. And she felt the sharp, bitter weight of responsibility. If they failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. And yet, in that fear she found clarity. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. They had endured plagues, wars, and catastrophes that would have destroyed lesser species. Against that history, she felt a surge of determination, stronger than any fear. Humanity would not bow, would not flee, and would not surrender. They would face the unknown, whatever it was, and they would fight. The crew of the Vanguard gathered in the main room. Each one understood, without words, that they were on the edge of something enormous. Each one carried the hope of humanity in their hearts. Fear was present, yes, but alongside it burned courage, stubborn, fierce human courage. They were preparing, yes, but more than that, they were learning, adapting, and proving that even the smallest species could face the vast, uncaring darkness of space with strength and resolve. The void pulsed again, almost like a heartbeat, almost like a warning, almost like recognition. And for the first time, humans understood, whatever awaited them was not indifferent. It had noticed, it had measured, it had waited, and now humanity would respond. Because Earth had always been ignored, always dismissed, always laughed at. But preparation was the first step toward survival. Preparation was the first step toward proving themselves. And in the heart of the galaxy, small, fragile, underestimated humans were preparing to face the unknown. And perhaps, for the first time in history, the galaxy would see them as more than they ever imagined. The silence of the void was broken first by a pulse of light. It was faint, almost unnoticed by the human sensors at first, a ripple in the darkness that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. The crew of the Vanguard felt it before they fully understood it. A warning? An invitation? Or the beginning of something much darker? Commander Elena Rojas stood at the observation window, eyes wide, every muscle taut. She did not speak. Words felt meaningless in the presence of the unknown. The Vanguard had ventured farther into the void than any human ship before. They had prepared, planned, and calculated, but nothing could fully prepare them for what came next. Dr. Naomi Chen's fingers danced over the console, eyes glued to the data streams. "Commander, I'm reading multiple energy spikes, approaching fast. There are vessels, multiple hundreds, maybe more. No, not ships as we know them. Structures, massive, immense, like floating mountains with power radiating off them." Raj Malhotra's hands were shaking, his mouth dry. How do you even fight something like that? Even one of those could destroy Earth with a single strike. Elena's eyes hardened, her jaw tight. "Then we survive the first strike. That's all we can do. Just the first strike." The first vessel appeared out of the darkness suddenly, as if it had always been there but waiting for the right moment. It was enormous, black like void itself, with edges that shimmered like liquid metal. Light bent around it, creating a visual distortion, an unnatural shadow in space. Its presence was overwhelming, oppressive. The crew felt the pull of its energy, not just in their instruments, but in their bodies. A heavy, physical pressure pressed against their chests. Dr. Chun swallowed hard. "It's alive or something like it. It's aware. It knows we're here." Elena's hands gripped the rail. "Then we show it we're alive too. All of us. Together." The Vanguard moved cautiously, smaller than a single wing of the colossal structure before them, dwarfed by its presence. Every calculation, every maneuver felt minuscule in comparison. And then, without warning, a beam of energy shot from the alien vessel toward the human ship. The alarm screamed. Red lights bathed the cabin. The energy struck near the ship's shields, cracking through protective layers, and sending vibrations across the hull. Raj stumbled back, almost falling. We're under attack. His voice shook, panic lacing every word. Elena's voice cut through the chaos, firm and unwavering. Hold your positions. Focus. Analyze the pattern. Don't panic. The crew scrambled. Naomi-chan analyzed the attack, her hands moving faster than her mind could fully process. The beam, it's not random. It's scanning, calculating. They're testing us. Elena's heart pounded. They had never faced a foe like this. Not the galaxy, not the Council's dismissive races. Nothing could have prepared them. And yet, fear did not stop her. Humans were small, fragile, but they endured. And now that endurance mattered more than weapons or ships. The vessel fired again, a jagged pulse of light that tore through space, missing the vanguard by meters but leaving a scorch mark in the void. Naomi whispered, voice trembling, "It could crush us in one strike. One. And we wouldn't even exist to fight back." Elena's gaze hardened. "Then we make this first strike count. Whatever it wants, we'll show it we're alive, that humans do not give up." She issued the commands with calm precision, despite the fear thrumming through her veins. Shields were redirected, sensors calibrated, defensive drones deployed. The ship was small, yes, but humans had always relied on ingenuity to survive where brute force would fail. The alien vessel responded instantly, moving with impossible speed. It seemed to anticipate every maneuver, twisting, dodging, striking. The vanguard danced through the darkness, tiny but defiant. Explosions and energy pulses flashed across the viewports, lighting the cabin with unnatural colors, casting shadows on every exhausted face. Raj shouted as another beam narrowly missed their hull. "Commander, we won't last another hit like that." Elena's voice was steady, unwavering. "We adapt. We survive. Focus on their weaknesses. Look for patterns. They're smart, yes, but they're not perfect." Hours seemed to stretch into days. The human crew dodged, observed, calculated, and survived. Each near miss was a lesson, each attack a clue. They began to notice patterns in the alien movements, slight pauses, deviations, hints that even something incomprehensibly powerful had limitations. And humanity, small and underestimated, began to learn. The emotional toll was immense. Fear gnawed at them. Every heartbeat reminded them of fragility. Every missed strike could be their last. Yet, in the midst of terror, camaraderie grew stronger. Each crew member depended entirely on the others. Every glance, every word, every action carried weight. One mistake could end everything. But one act of courage could survive, and perhaps give Earth a chance. Elena found herself thinking of the planet they had left behind. The millions of people unaware, living ordinary lives, unaware that the fate of their world was being decided far away in silence and shadow. Her chest tightened with the enormity of it. She had promised survival. She had promised courage. And for humanity's sake, she would not fail. Finally, as the first clash reached its peak, Naomi-chan cried out, "Commander, look at the shield resonance. Their energy is not uniform. There's a pattern here. We can exploit it." Elena acted instantly. Orders were precise, rapid, almost instinctive. Defensive drones adjusted, shields modulated, weapons targeted, points identified as weak. The vanguard struck back, not with overwhelming force, which they did not have, but with accuracy, precision, and human cunning. The alien vessel shuddered. It had never experienced such a reaction from a tiny, insignificant ship. Humans were supposed to flee, to hide, to perish. And yet, here they were, adapting, surviving, fighting back. For a moment, the darkness of the void seemed to pause, as if acknowledging this defiance. The pulse of energy, the heartbeat, changed. Faster, stronger, almost impressed. Elena's voice was hoarse as she whispered to herself, watching the alien ship tremble under the vanguard's small but precise strike. "We are here. We are alive. And we will survive." The first clash ended as suddenly as it had begun. The alien vessel retreated into the shadows of the void, disappearing, leaving behind only the echoes of its presence. The Vanguard shuddered from the aftermath, systems smoking, alarms still ringing, but it was intact. The crew, trembling, exhausted, and emotionally drained, looked at one another with a mixture of fear and awe. They had survived. The first human ship had faced the unknown armada and endured. They had not won, but they had proven that humans were not merely insignificant. They were resilient, clever, and unbroken. Elena leaned against the railing, chest heaving, eyes locked on the empty darkness where the vessel had vanished. "This is only the beginning," she said softly, almost to herself. "They know we exist. They know we're here, and they'll be back. And when they return, we will be ready." Raj, wiping sweat and tears from his face, whispered, I can't believe we lived through that." Elena looked at him, her eyes firm but kind. "Believe it, because next time we won't just survive. We'll fight, and we'll make them understand that humans are not to be ignored." And somewhere deep in the void, the pulse continued, stronger now, almost alive. It had noticed humanity, and the galaxy, still blind and dismissive, would soon learn that Earth was no longer insignificant. For the first time, humans had faced the unknown and had survived. And that survival carried more than life. It carried defiance, courage, and the first whisper of a warning to the stars. The darkness of the void shifted. It was no longer empty. The pulse that humans had been tracking for weeks had grown into something colossal, something impossible to ignore. From the black expanse beyond known space, vessels emerged, thousands of them, stretching across the horizon of the stars, each one enormous, immense beyond comprehension. Energy flared along their hulls, waves of power that bent light and twisted space around them. Humanity's first taste of the unknown armada was terrifying. Now the galaxy would witness it in full. On the Vanguard, the crew stared in disbelief. Elena Rojas' hands tightened around the railing. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not just with fear, but with the realization of what they were facing. How many?" she whispered. Dr. Naomi Chun could barely speak, eyes fixed on the data streams. "At least 2,000, no more. Each one larger than the Council's dreadnoughts. And they're coordinated. Every vessel is in formation, as if they've been waiting for something. Waiting for us." Raj Malhotra's mouth went dry. 2,000. How do we even fight that?" His voice cracked under the weight of what he saw. The ships moved like a storm across the void, black against the stars, pulsing with energy that threatened to crush the human mind with its sheer scale. "Commander, they could erase Earth in an instant." Elena didn't look away. Her mind worked faster than ever, calculating, predicting, preparing. "Then we make them notice us first. We show them we're alive. We survived the first wave. That's all we can do right now." The human crew had trained for emergencies, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Thousands of vessels, each one a fortress, and the pulse of the armada was not just energy, it was intelligence. It moved with purpose, scanning the void, adjusting to every anomaly, every calculation. And now it had noticed them. Naomi Chun studied the energy readings, her hands trembling. "They're aware of our probes, of our movements. They're watching, calculating, and somehow it feels like they know we're afraid." Her voice was quiet, but every syllable carried the weight of dread. Fear gripped the Vanguard, but alongside it burned human determination. The crew understood that panic would mean death. Fear could be a weapon if controlled, but it could also destroy them if allowed to dominate. Elena's voice cut through the tension, firm and steady. "We do not panic. We analyze, we adapt, we survive. Humanity has endured the impossible before, and we will endure this. Focus, all of you. Every action matters." The armada moved closer. The void itself seemed to pulse with their approach. Stars around the fleet distorted as energy waves radiated from the vessels. Space bent under their power. The sensors on the Vanguard screamed warnings, systems overloaded, alarms blaring in chaotic symphony. And yet the humans endured. Raj shook his head, gripping the console. I can't. I can't believe this is real. It's like the galaxy's nightmares came alive. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. It is real. And right now, we're the first line of defense. Every choice, every calculation, every move we make counts, not just for us, but for Earth. Do you understand? He nodded, swallowing hard. Yes, Commander. We fight. The first wave of vessels approached the vanguard, energy pulsating in waves that threatened to tear the small human ship apart. But Elena acted with precision. Defensive shields were modulated to absorb the initial pulse, evasive maneuvers executed with human ingenuity and timing that the Armada did not expect. The vanguard was tiny, insignificant, but clever. And cleverness had always been humanity's greatest weapon. Naomi Chen's eyes widened as she noticed a pattern. Commander, their energy waves aren't uniform. There's a rhythm, like a heartbeat. If we can synchronize our maneuvers with it, we might be able to dodge their strikes more efficiently. Elena's mind raced. Do it. Focus the shields. Calculate the rhythm. Anticipate every pulse. Hours stretched into a blur. The vanguard dodged, adapted, survived. Each near miss was a lesson, each beam of energy a warning. And slowly, humanity learned. They learned the rhythm of the Armada, the logic behind its attacks, the flaws in its seemingly perfect coordination. Small victories, invisible from the outside, strengthened the crew. They were exhausted, terrified, but alive, and more importantly, capable. The emotional toll was crushing. Every crew member had faced death more times than they could count in the span of hours. Fatigue and fear threatened to overwhelm them. Yet, through the exhaustion, bonds strengthened. Each human depended entirely on the others. Trust, loyalty, and courage became shields stronger than any metal. Every glance, every word, every action mattered. Humanity's resilience was their weapon. Elena thought of Earth, of the billions of lives unaware, blissfully ignorant of the horror approaching their planet. She clenched her fists, rage and determination burning together. We will not fail, she whispered. For every life on Earth, for every soul that believes in hope, we survive. We endure. And we fight. The Armada pulsed again, massive and relentless, yet something shifted. For the first time, a fraction of hesitation appeared in their formation. The vanguard struck in response, a precise maneuver exploiting the slight misalignment. Energy from the first wave was partially redirected, shields absorbing most of the impact, while the ship's small weapons struck points that shimmered differently from the rest of the vessels. A tiny flicker of damage appeared, almost unnoticeable but monumental. Humanity had made an impression. Raj gasped, voice shaking. Did we? Elena's eyes narrowed, a faint smile breaking through exhaustion. We survived. And we've learned. That's the first step. The Armada paused, silent for a moment in the endless black. The pulse of energy, their heartbeat, changed. Faster, more complex, almost aware. Humans were no longer invisible, no longer insignificant. Their defiance, their ingenuity, their courage had been recognized. Naomi Chun leaned back, trembling, tears in her eyes. Commander, we're still alive. We survived. Elena's gaze remained on the horizon, the endless dark where the Armada waited. Yes, she said softly, voice full of determination. And they will return. Stronger, faster. But so will we. Humanity does not surrender. We endure. We fight. And we will not be forgotten. Somewhere deep in the void, the pulse of the Armada continued, stronger now, alive and intelligent. It had measured humans, noted their defiance, and calculated that they were not to be dismissed. And the galaxy, still blind and dismissive, would soon learn that Earth was no longer insignificant. The void had awakened, and humanity had survived the first storm. The galaxy had been silent for centuries, indifferent to the small blue planet that spun quietly in a forgotten arm of the Milky Way. The counselors, ancient and arrogant, continued their debates in shining chambers, unaware that the void, the darkness they all feared, had awakened, and that humanity had already drawn its attention. On the vanguard, the crew was exhausted but alive. The first clash had revealed the sheer scale of the armada, and the small victories had been lessons etched into their minds and bodies. Elena Rojas stood before the observation window, staring into the blackness of the void where the enemy vessels lingered, massive and patient. She could feel them, almost alive, almost sentient, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Dr. Naomi Chen's voice broke the heavy silence. "Commander, I've been analyzing their formations. They're not just ships. They're coordinated, but there's a pattern. They respond to aggression, yes, but they also react to hesitation. They study us." Raj Malhotra shook his head, gripping the console like it would anchor him to reality. "Study us? They don't just want to destroy us." Elena's eyes were hard, unwavering. "They'll destroy us if we make mistakes. But that doesn't mean we have no chance. We've already survived the first encounter. We've learned more than any council member ever bothered to see." The reality of their position hit them like a cold wave. The galaxy had ignored humans, laughed at them, dismissed them as insignificant. And yet here they were, the first species to confront the armada and survive. That alone made them valuable, dangerous, necessary. Elena called the crew to a briefing. The room was tense, every face drawn tight with exhaustion and fear. "We have 3 options," she said. 1, hide and hope they forget us. Impossible. 2, fight blindly and die. Also impossible. 3, learn, adapt, and survive. That is what humans do best. We adapt, we survive, and we fight smart. Naomi nodded, pointing at the holographic projections of the void and the armada. "We've gathered intelligence from the first encounter. Their movements, their energy pulses, the timing of their attacks. It's a rhythm. And every rhythm has a weakness. If we can predict their responses, we can survive longer, maybe even strike back effectively." Raj swallowed hard. "You're saying we could actually fight them? Not just survive?" Elena met his gaze, her voice quiet but full of resolve. "Not alone. But we can. If we act wisely. If we exploit every advantage, if we don't panic, and if we rely on each other completely. The galaxy thinks we're weak. That's why we still have a chance." The next days were grueling. The Vanguard deployed stealth drones into the void, mapping the armada's formations, studying the rhythm of their attacks, noting every weakness. Humans had never faced a foe like this. Intelligent, immense, and patient. Every mistake would be fatal. Every correct observation could be the difference between survival and annihilation. Exhaustion became a constant companion. Crew members slept in shifts of 2 or 3 hours, hearts pounding with adrenaline even in rest. Fear gnawed at them, yet determination kept them moving. Every day, the pulse of the armada grew stronger, its awareness sharper. It was no longer a distant threat. It was watching, calculating, almost alive in its intent. Elena remembered the words of her mentors before leaving Earth. Humanity had always been underestimated, always ignored, and that was now their greatest weapon. No one expected them to endure, no one expected them to survive, and certainly no one expected them to fight intelligently. That invisibility, that dismissal, allowed humans to act without interference. And in that freedom, she planned to turn the armada's power against them. Naomi discovered something crucial in the data. "Commander, the vessels seem to communicate through energy pulses. Every movement they make, every attack is synchronized. But there's a delay. A fraction of a second delay between command and response. It's subtle, almost unnoticeable. But if we can exploit it..." Her voice trailed off. Elena's mind raced. "We exploit it. We hit where they cannot respond immediately. Precision, not brute force. We've survived against odds like this before. Now we fight smart, as humans always do." Raj's eyes widened. "That's incredible, but dangerous. If we miscalculate, we won't just lose the ship. We'll lose everything." Elena's gaze softened briefly, reflecting the weight of responsibility she bore. "I know, but we've faced impossible odds before, Raj. Every day we survive is a victory. Every lesson we learn is a weapon. Humanity has never relied on strength alone. We rely on courage, on ingenuity, on each other. That's how we survive. That's how we fight. The first small victories began to emerge. Drones sent into the Armada's formation returned with detailed patterns, energy fluctuations, and weak points that the humans could exploit. Even the smallest piece of intelligence became invaluable. Every crew member felt the weight of their discoveries. Humanity had survived the first clash, but now they had to prepare for more. The Armada would return, and when it did, they would be stronger, more coordinated, and deadlier. Despite the tension, a quiet sense of pride filled the crew. They were the first humans to face this unimaginable threat, and they were learning faster than anyone expected. The galaxy may have ignored them, but they had already proven their worth. Not to the Council, not to the ancient races, but to themselves. One evening, Elena stood alone at the observation deck, staring at the void. The pulse of the Armada was relentless, a heartbeat in the darkness, a silent warning and challenge. She thought of Earth, of the millions unaware of what waited beyond the stars. Her chest ached with the responsibility of leadership, the fear of failure, and the hope that burned stubbornly within her. "We will survive," she whispered to herself. "We will endure. We will fight. And somehow, we will prove that humans are not insignificant, that Earth is not weak, that we are capable of more than they have ever imagined." Back in the strategy room, the crew worked tirelessly. Every calculation, every observation, every simulation prepared them for the moment the Armada would return. Fear was constant, gnawing, but determination was stronger. Humanity had survived catastrophes before. They had endured famine, war, disease, and disaster. Now, in the silence of the void, they would endure again. The first step was preparation, the second step was learning, and the third, when the time came, would be action. Humans would rally not just to survive, but to prove themselves. And somewhere in the darkness, the Armada pulsed in recognition. It had noted the humans. It had measured them. It had underestimated them once, but it would not underestimate them again. The galaxy, still blind, still arrogant, still dismissive, would soon learn that the small blue planet, ignored for centuries, had begun to awaken. And humanity, small, fragile, underestimated, was preparing to strike back. Because when humans survived against impossible odds, they did not just endure. They adapted, they learned, and they became unstoppable. The first whispers of a human counterattack had begun. The void was alive. For weeks, the Armada had waited, observing the tiny blue ship, studying humans with incomprehensible intelligence, patience, and power. And now, the humans had learned something in return. They had discovered patterns, weaknesses, rhythms in the enemy's movement, small, almost imperceptible cracks in perfection. And they were ready to act. Commander Elena Rojas stood in the control room of the Vanguard, every muscle taut, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the void. The fleet of thousands stretched across the darkness, black monoliths pulsing with power that dwarfed anything humanity had built. But Elena did not flinch. She did not hesitate. This was their moment, the first real step in humanity's fight for survival and for recognition. "Drones are deployed," Dr. Naomi Chan reported, voice trembling with tension. "They've entered the Armada's formation. Every weak point we identified is being scanned, logged. If we can synchronize the strike with the rhythm of their energy pulses, we might succeed." Raj Malhotra's hands shook as he gripped the console. "We're really doing this. We're actually attacking them? They could destroy us in a second." Elena's voice was calm, firm, filled with the weight of leadership. "Yes, they could. And that's why we have to do this perfectly. One mistake and we die. But if we succeed, even slightly, we prove that humanity matters. We are alive. We are dangerous. We are not insignificant." The crew moved with precise coordination. Every command, every maneuver, every calculation carried the weight of billions of lives on Earth. The Vanguard was small, fragile, but clever. Humans had never relied on brute force. They relied on ingenuity, courage, and the ability to adapt faster than any opponent. And now, that skill was all that stood between survival and annihilation. The first strike was subtle but devastating. Using the synchronized data from the drones, the Vanguard fired precision pulses of energy at the Armada, targeting the tiny weak points Naomi had identified. They were small, almost invisible, but effective. The nearest vessel shuddered as the pulse struck. The Armada paused, recalibrated, but the humans had already anticipated it. Every move was measured, every maneuver pre-planned. Raj's voice broke the tense silence. "Commander, they're reacting. They didn't expect that." Elena's eyes narrowed, focus absolute. "Then we continue. Timing, precision, coordination. Every pulse counts." The battle intensified. Beams of energy tore through the void, missiles and countermeasures darted between the massive vessels, and the Vanguard danced through the chaos like a blade of light in darkness. The humans were terrified, yes, every alarm, every explosion reminded them how fragile they were. But fear was paired with exhilaration, with purpose. Every small victory was proof that they could survive. Naomi cried out, voice trembling, as another pulse struck home. "Commander, another weak point. If we hit it now." Elena acted instantly. "Do it." The crew followed flawlessly, precision strikes hitting multiple vessels in coordination. For the first time, the Armada, the immortal, immense Armada of the Void, faltered. Ships shifted awkwardly, formations broke, energy waves fluctuated. Humans had struck a blow, however small, against the invincible. The emotional toll on the crew was immense. Raj's hands were shaking, sweat streaking his face. We did it. We actually did it." Elena did not relax. Her chest heaved, heart pounding, but her gaze remained locked on the enemy. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. They will adapt. They will return stronger. We must survive. That's our victory." The Armada pulsed, massive, intelligent, alive. It recalculated, responded to the humans' first attack, and unleashed waves of energy with unprecedented precision. Beams struck dangerously close, shaking the Vanguard, warning humanity that this fight was far from over. Yet amidst the terror, a quiet pride bloomed. Humans were fighting back. They were learning, adapting, surviving. The galaxy had ignored them for centuries, laughed at them, dismissed them. But here, in the darkness, they had made the Armada notice them. They had left a mark, however small, on something unimaginably vast. Elena's voice was steady, though her heart raced. "Prepare for the next wave. They'll counterattack. Stay sharp. Stay focused. Every second matters." Naomi's hands flew over the controls. "Commander, they're reacting faster, but the rhythm is still there. We can exploit it again. We can survive this. We can—" Her voice broke as another pulse struck, almost overwhelming the ship, and she swallowed the fear. Raj whispered, voice trembling, I never thought I'd see humanity do this. Fight like this. Against the impossible." Elena looked at him, her eyes softening briefly, but full of determination. "Raj, we are human. We survive. We adapt. And we fight. That's what sets us apart. That's why we're still alive." The battle raged on for hours. Energy pulses, evasive maneuvers, calculated strikes, and constant adaptation defined the humans' first counterattack. They did not destroy the Armada. That was impossible. But they survived. They learned. And they struck back, leaving the first trace of defiance that the Void could not ignore. As the first wave of vessels shifted away, retreating to recalibrate, the crew of the Vanguard collapsed, exhausted, trembling, but alive. Tears ran down faces streaked with sweat and fear. They had survived the first human counterattack against an enemy that could have destroyed Earth in a heartbeat. Elena stood at the observation window, voice quiet but resolute. "They know we exist. They know we fight. And they will not forget us. But neither will we. Humanity is alive, and we will continue to fight. We will endure. We will adapt. And we will survive." The pulse of the Armada continued, stronger, alive, aware. It had noted humanity's defiance. It had calculated their ingenuity. It had underestimated them once, but never again. And in the endless black, the vanguard carried the hope of a small blue planet, a defiance that no darkness, no fear, no armada could erase. Humans had struck back, and the galaxy would soon learn that Earth, long ignored, had begun to awaken. The first counterattack had ended, but the war had only begun. The void had grown darker. After the first human counterattack, the armada had retreated, but it did not vanish. It lingered, colossal and patient, a shadow over the stars. Thousands of vessels stretched across the horizon, energy radiating in silent waves that distorted the surrounding light. It was a presence impossible to ignore, and the humans aboard the Vanguard felt it pressing down on them like the weight of 1,000 worlds. Commander Elena Rojas stood at the observation window, her jaw tight, eyes scanning the darkness. The first counterattack had shown them that survival was possible, that humans could fight against incomprehensible odds. But this moment was different. The Armada was no longer simply observing, they were mobilizing. Every pulse, every movement, radiated intent, strategy, and awareness. Dr. Naomi Chen's voice trembled as she analyzed the data. "Commander, they're moving in formations I've never seen before. They're coordinating. It's like they're preparing for something massive, a full-scale engagement. And the void itself seems to respond to their presence." Raj Malhotra's face was pale, hands gripping the console. "How do we even face that? They're thousands of times larger than us, and stronger, and smarter. We can't fight that." Elena did not flinch. Her eyes were steely, unyielding. "We don't fight them head-on. We survive. We adapt. We strike where they are weakest. That's what humans do. That's why we're still alive." The Vanguard moved cautiously, weaving through the darkness, small and fragile against the Armada's overwhelming presence. Every sensor was active, every drone deployed. The humans were learning, analyzing, noting every subtle shift in the alien formations. Even the smallest data point was precious. A single observation could save lives or doom them all. Naomi pointed at the display, voice shaking but determined. "Commander, I found a pattern. Their vessels aren't perfect. Every formation has gaps, however small. If we time it right, we can slip through and strike isolated targets. Precision, not brute force. That's our only chance." Elena nodded, her mind already calculating. "Good. We'll focus on the weak points, exploit the gaps. Each move must be flawless. There is no room for error." The crew worked in tense silence, executing calculations, adjusting shields, coordinating maneuvers. Hours passed like seconds, every heartbeat a reminder of their fragility, every movement carrying immense weight. The void pulsed around them, alive, aware, as if observing their every action, testing their resolve. Suddenly, the Armada shifted. One of the massive vessels moved in an arc, energy rippling outward in waves that threatened the Vanguard's shields. Naomi cried out, "They're testing us. Adjust shields. Predict the pulse." Raj shouted, almost in disbelief, "Commander, we're too small, too weak." Elena's voice cut through, calm and commanding. "No, we are humans. We survive. We adapt. We fight. Focus." With precision, the crew redirected shields and adjusted the ship's trajectory. The pulse struck the edge of their defenses, vibrating through the hull but not breaking it. The Vanguard shuddered, alarms blaring, but they endured. Small as they were, clever and adaptable humans had survived the first assault. The Armada pulsed again, faster, sharper, more coordinated. Its intelligence was overwhelming, calculating, almost alive. But humans had a weapon the Armada did not expect: creativity, courage, and unpredictability. Elena's mind raced. "We will use their awareness against them. Draw them in. Isolate. Strike. Retreat. Every move counts. Every second matters. This is our fight, and we will not be defeated." Naomi's hands flew over the console. "Commander, I've detected a cluster of vessels. Isolated for now. If we strike here, we could disrupt the formation, create chaos." Elena nodded. "Then that's where we go. Small strike, maximum effect. Raj, you coordinate the drones. Naomi, prepare the energy pulses. I'll pilot the ship through the gap. Timing is everything. The Vanguard moved, small and fast, weaving through the shadows of the massive armada vessels. Every pulse of energy, every calculated movement, carried the weight of survival. The drone struck first, precision-guided, sending data back to the ship. The humans followed, striking weak points with controlled energy pulses. One vessel shuddered. Another wavered. For the first time, the Armada had felt disruption from a species it had considered insignificant. Fear was constant. Every vibration through the hull, every alarm, reminded the crew that a single misstep could destroy them all. Yet courage burned alongside fear, stubborn and unyielding. Humanity's strength had never been in sheer size or overwhelming firepower. It was in adaptability, intelligence, and the refusal to surrender. Hours passed in this tense dance. The humans struck, retreated, adapted, and survived. Each minor success was monumental, a small spark against an entity that could have erased Earth without hesitation. And every pulse, every subtle advantage, was learned, logged, and prepared for the next engagement. Elena's voice, quiet but resolute, carried through the control room. We've survived. We've struck back. The Armada knows humans are alive, that we are clever, that we are dangerous. And they will remember it. But we are not done. We are only beginning. Humanity endures. Humanity fights. And we will survive. Raj looked at her, exhaustion and awe mingling on his face. I never thought humans could do this. Against the impossible. Elena smiled faintly, though her eyes remained on the void. We can. We always can. We survive, adapt, fight. That is what it means to be human. That is why we are still here. And that is why the Armada will never forget us. Outside, the void pulsed like a living heartbeat. Shadows of the Armada loomed, immense, alive and calculating. But humans had left their mark, small yet undeniable. The galaxy might still ignore them, might still doubt them, but the first cracks in the Armada's perfection had appeared. Humanity was no longer insignificant, and in the endless black, as the Vanguard navigated the shifting shadows of the Armada, one truth remained clear. The war was far from over, but humans were awake, prepared, and unbroken. The shadows of the Armada had risen, and humanity was ready to meet them. The void no longer felt empty, felt alive. Every pulse of the Armada echoed through space like a heartbeat, slow and powerful, shaking the stars themselves. The Vanguard drifted in the shadow of the massive fleet, damaged, exhausted, but still moving. Humanity had survived longer than anyone believed possible, but survival was no longer enough. Something had changed. Something inside the humans had awakened. Commander Elena Rojas stood silent, staring at the shifting darkness. Her eyes were tired, her face pale, but her posture was strong. She could feel it in her bones. This was no longer just a fight for survival. This was a moment that would decide humanity's place in the galaxy. Dr. Naomi Chun broke the silence, her voice shaking with emotion. Commander, I think I've found something. Something big. Elena turned slowly. Say it. Naomi's hands trembled over the console. The Armada isn't just attacking us. It's reacting to us. Every time we change tactics, their formations shift. Every time we strike, they respond differently. We're not just being hunted anymore. We're being studied. Raj Malhotra swallowed hard. That means we're important now, doesn't it? Elena nodded. Yes, and that means we're dangerous. The room fell silent. The idea was terrifying and powerful at the same time. Humans, the species the galaxy laughed at, the planet that was ignored at every summit, had become important to the most terrifying force in existence. That alone changed everything. Naomi's eyes widened as more data streamed in. Commander, look at this. The Armada's energy network. It's centralized. Not fully, but enough. If we hit the right point just once, we could disrupt their coordination for minutes. Maybe longer. Raj's breath caught. Minutes? That's That's an eternity in a battle. Elena's heart began to race, not with fear, but with hope. A dangerous kind of hope. That's our turning point, she said quietly. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to break their rhythm. Once. The vanguard moved silently, slipping between shadows cast by ships the size of cities. Every second felt like a lifetime. The crew worked in complete silence, each one knowing the cost of failure. There would be no second chances, no rescue, no forgiveness from the void. Elena thought of Earth, of oceans, skies, children laughing, people arguing, people living normal lives. They had no idea how close everything was to ending. And she realized something that made her chest ache. Humanity deserved a future. No matter how small they were, no matter how weak the galaxy thought they deserved to survive. Prepare the strike, she whispered. Naomi's voice cracked. If we do this, they will notice us completely. There will be no hiding after. Elena's eyes burned with determination. They already see us. Now we make sure they remember us. The ship moved closer to the central energy node, a massive structure pulsing like a heart made of light and shadow. Energy waves rippled outward, threatening to tear the vanguard apart. Alarms screamed. The hull groaned. Raj's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the controls. Commander, we're losing stability. Hold it together, Elena shouted. Just a little longer. Naomi shouted. Now! Fire now! The vanguard released everything it had. A focused burst of energy, small compared to the Armada's power, but precise. Perfect. It struck the node. For a moment nothing happened. Then the void screamed. Energy rippled through the Armada like a shockwave. Ships drifted out of formation. Pulses misfired. The perfect rhythm shattered. For the first time since the beginning of the war, the Armada was confused. Raj stared at the screen, tears in his eyes. We did it. We actually did it. Naomi collapsed into her chair, sobbing. They're losing coordination. It's working. Elena closed her eyes for just 1 second, letting the relief wash over her. Then she opened them again, sharper than ever. This is it. This is our moment. Send the data to Earth. To anyone who will listen. Show them everything. Signals burst from the vanguard, racing across space toward Earth and beyond. For the first time, the galaxy would see what humans had seen. For the first time, Earth would not be ignored. The Armada recovered quickly. It always did. But the damage was done. The myth was broken. The illusion of perfection shattered. Humans had proven that the void could be hurt, that it could be disrupted, that it could be challenged. Elena looked at her crew, tears and smiles mixing on exhausted faces. Remember this moment, she said softly. This is the day humanity stopped running. This is the day we fought back. Outside, the Armada reformed, slower now, more cautious. It had learned something new. Humans were not prey. They were not noise. They were not insignificant. They were a threat. And across the galaxy, the first whispers began. Messages spread. Councils panicked. Ancient races finally looked toward Earth with fear and respect. The turning point had arrived. The galaxy was burning. Not with fire, but with fear. Signals from Earth had reached every corner of known space. The truth could no longer be hidden. The Armada could be hurt. The void could be disrupted. And humanity, ignored, laughed at, forgotten, had become the spark that lit the stars. Now the Armada was moving. All 2,000 vessels shifted at once, their massive forms bending space as they advanced toward Earth. This was no test, no observation. This was execution. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Commander Elena Rojas felt the weight of the universe press down on her chest. The screens showed the enemy fleet approaching like a wall of darkness. Behind her, the human fleet gathered, small, fragile ships from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies, every one of them carrying people who had chosen to fight instead of hide. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and they knew it. Naomi's voice trembled. Commander, this is everything they have. If we fail here, Earth is gone. Elena nodded slowly. Then we do not fail. Around them, hundreds of human ships aligned, forming the first true human battle line in history. They were different models, different sizes, built by different nations that once fought each other. Now they stood together. One species, one purpose. Raj swallowed hard, tears in his eyes. I never thought I'd see this. Humans, united. Elena looked at the fleet and felt something deep inside her chest crack open. Pride, fear, love. No matter what happens, she said quietly, history will remember this moment. The Armada fired first. The void exploded with light and force. Entire sections of space twisted as beams of energy tore through the human lines. Ships vanished. Lives ended in flashes of fire. Screams filled comm channels, then cut to silence. The loss was immediate and unbearable. Hold formation, Elena shouted. Do not break. Human ships fired back not with raw power, but with precision. They used everything they had learned, patterns, rhythms, gaps. They struck the Armada's coordination nodes, its relay points, its energy veins. Every hit mattered. Every second mattered. Naomi's hands moved like lightning. We're slowing them down. Not much, but enough. Raj cried out, Commander, the left flank is collapsing. Elena's voice did not break. Send reserves. We hold the line. We hold it no matter the cost. One by one, human ships sacrificed themselves to keep the formation intact. They rammed enemy vessels. They overloaded reactors. They bought time with their lives. No one hesitated. No one ran. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as names disappeared from the screen. People she knew. People she laughed with. Gone. But humanity did not break. The vanguard surged forward, straight into the heart of the Armada. Naomi shouted, Commander, if we get close enough, we can hit the core network again. But we won't survive the return. Elena did not hesitate. Then we don't return. Raj turned, horror in his eyes. You can't mean that. Elena smiled sadly. This is why we were ignored, Raj. They thought we were weak. But humans fight for each other. That's what they never understood. The vanguard flew through storms of fire and shadow. Shields collapsed. Hull tore open. Air screamed into space. Still they flew. Now! Elena shouted. Naomi triggered the final pulse. The energy slammed into the Armada's core like a thunderbolt. The void shook. Thousands of enemy ships faltered, their formations breaking apart, their coordination collapsing. For the first time, the Armada truly stumbled. Across the galaxy, sensors went wild. The impossible was happening. The vanguard drifted, dying, systems failing. Raj's voice was weak. Commander, did we do it? Elena looked out at the stars, at the broken Armada, at the human fleet still fighting, still alive. Yes, she whispered. We did. The Armada began to retreat. Not because it was destroyed, but because it was defeated. Because humans had proven something no one else ever had. The void could be stopped. As the enemy pulled back, the remaining human ships erupted in cries of disbelief, joy, and grief. They had lost so much, but they had saved everything. The vanguard fell silent, drifting among the stars it had protected. And in that silence, the galaxy changed forever. The war was over. The stars were quiet again. Where fire and screams once filled the void, now there was only silence. Heavy, painful, and sacred. Broken ships drifted like ghosts through space, reminders of what had been lost so that life could continue. The Armada was gone, retreating into the darkness from which it had come, wounded, changed, and aware of humanity's strength. Earth was still alive. That simple truth echoed across the galaxy like a miracle. On Earth, people stood in the streets, staring at the sky, crying, laughing, holding each other. They did not fully understand what had happened, only that something terrible had almost ended everything, and that someone had stopped it. Mothers held children tighter. Old enemies embraced. For the first time in centuries, the planet was united not by fear, but by survival. High above, what remained of the human fleet gathered slowly, silently, around the drifting vanguard. The ship that had started as a forgotten scout had become a symbol. Its hull was broken. Its lights were fading, but it was still there. Commander Elena Rojas stood alone at the observation window, her body heavy, her soul exhausted. She could barely feel her hands. She could barely breathe. The war had taken everything from her. Friends, crew, pieces of herself she would never get back. But it had also given her something. Meaning. Raj Malhotra sat nearby, wounded but alive, watching the stars with empty eyes. Commander, do you think they'll remember us? Elena turned slowly, her voice soft but steady. They have to. The galaxy cannot ignore us anymore. Not after this. Dr. Naomi Chen approached, her face streaked with tears that never fully dried. Earth is calling us. Every council, every world. They want to speak to humanity. Elena closed her eyes, the weight of it finally hitting her. All the years of silence, all the summits ignored, all the laughter behind closed doors. It was over. Humanity had earned its voice. Across the galaxy, ancient civilizations gathered in emergency councils. Species that had existed for millions of years spoke Earth's name with respect and fear. Records were rewritten. Warnings were issued. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not insignificant. Humans were unstoppable when they stood together. On Earth, a memorial was built before the wreckage had even cooled. Names were carved into stone. Thousands of them. Millions. Every life lost in the darkness was remembered in the light. No one was forgotten. No one was ignored again. The vanguard was guided slowly back toward Earth, carried by escort ships like a wounded hero. As it entered orbit, the entire planet watched. Every screen, every city, every village. And when the battered ship finally descended, the world fell silent. Elena stepped onto the surface of Earth, her boots touching soil she had nearly lost forever. The wind brushed her face. The sun warmed her skin. She fell to her knees, hands trembling, and for the first time since the war began, she cried. She was not alone. All over the planet, people cried with her, not from fear, but from relief. The Galactic Council sent its message the same day. Earth was invited, not as an observer, not as a minor voice, but as a leader, a protector, a species that had faced the void and lived. Elena stood before the council weeks later, the scars of battle still visible in her eyes. She did not speak loudly. She did not speak proudly. She spoke simply. "We were ignored," she said, "and we survived. We were laughed at and we endured. We were attacked and we fought back. We do not ask for power. We ask for unity, because the next darkness will come. And when it does, we will stand together." The council chamber was silent. Then, slowly, one by one, every world bowed. Not to a commander, not to a ship, but to humanity. Back on Earth, children looked up at the stars and dreamed not of fear, but of exploration, of peace, of becoming something greater. The scars of war would never fade, but they would become reminders of strength, not weakness. And somewhere far beyond the galaxy, in the deep unknown, the Armada watched. It remembered Earth. It remembered humans. And it would never make the mistake of ignoring them again, because humanity had claimed its moment, and the stars would never forget it.